right. Everyone alive, awake, alert, joyous, and enthusiastic about life? Woo! All right, I love it. So, as advertised, we're here to talk about LLM prompt engineering. We're going to cover a lot of different topics within that sphere. Specifically, what are LLMs? How do they compare with other AIs? What are their quirks and foibles, strengths, limitations? What the frack is a prompt anyway? And also what you're probably most interested in, tips for making good prompts. There's a good way to do it, and there's not so good ways to do it. We're going to cover a little bit of both. We're also going to discuss common use cases, and if the demo gods are kind, we'll do live demos. Woohoo! So make whatever sacrifices you feel are appropriate. Last but not least, I will be providing you with some lists of resources. There are a ton of wonderful resources out there. And if anything, the biggest problem is data overload. Now, why should you care what I have to say? Well, as advertised, I'm Corvus, mundanely known as Bronwen Aker. I did development for a couple of years, not much, some web, a little desktop, some mobile. I also did technical training for a decade or two, so not my first rodeo. In 2017, however, I decided to switch career paths and went into cybersecurity. Since then, specifically since 2018, I've been working for a company called Black Hills Information Security. I'm their lead technical editor, so if you get a technical report from us, thank you. Yes, I work for John Strand, not a cult. And it's just been a wonderful thing. Now, through my job with BHIS, I read anywhere from 150 to 250 pen test reports per year. So I see a lot of stuff going through. Bottom line, I'm a geek who's been around, and I've seen a lot of natural fertilizer. Full disclosure about this talk. This talk was created using LLMs and other generative AIs. In fact, all of them were under adult supervision at all times. That's, of course, assuming you consider me to be an adult. And just to prove the point, this image was generated using Copilot. So, what's an LLM? LLM stands for Large Language Model. And for the purposes of this comparison, I'm going to talk about three of them. I actually went to ChatGPT 4.0, Copilot, and Claude, and I asked them, what's an LLM? ChatGPT gave me this, an advanced AI model designed to understand and generate human language. It is built using deep learning techniques and trained on vast data sets, blah, 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 blah. Lots of word salad. Copilot was no better, and Claude was right there too. If you distill it down, an LLM is an AI system created to perform complex language tasks with high fluency. That means that they're all about text, they're all about language. They don't do pictures. LLMs are different from a lot of technologies that you may be familiar with because the data sets they use are massive. They're huge. There are billions of transforms or data points included in any LLM you're ever going to utilize. Some of them have as few as 3 billion transforms. Others will have tens of billions. Obviously, the larger ones take more processing power to do anything with, but all of that is available for you to download and play with anytime. The biggest thing that I see about LLMs is that what they're doing is they're transforming how we interact with technology. So, We touched on AIs. What's an AI? I went to the same suspects and I asked them the same question. And again, word salad. Branch of computer science focused on creating systems capable of performing tasks that typically require human intelligence. Branch of computer science that aims to do stuff that normally requires human intelligence. Are you picking up a common thread here? Because I sure was. Human intelligence. Human intelligence. Human intelligence. AIs are tools that are designed to imitate human intelligence. Now, the good news is we do not have general AI yet. So don't worry about the Terminator coming to get you this week. Next week, I'm not saying anything, but that's a key thing. And AI is a vast, huge, giant field. And this is how it fits together. Now, you've got so many things going on with AI. AI touches on robotics. It has LLMs. It has your stable diffusion and other generative things going on. It's massive. There's no way in a single hour-long presentation to discuss all the dimensions of AI. LLMs are a subset of AI that involves deep learning and is generative and has to do with text. So just as I tell people who are just now getting into web development, all the new kids who they see all the cool things and it's React and it's this and that, and you know what? At the end of the day, it's text. Hypertext markup language is what all of that stuff and eventually has to be rendered as. And here it's the same thing. Now, an interesting story, when I was putting this together, I hit up one of my coworkers who happens to have a doctorate in data science. So I ran this graphic by him and goes, ooh, that's really cool, but you got AI and machine learning reversed. And I can see arguments in both ways. It could be argued that machine learning is a superset of AI, or the other way. But again, infinite are the arguments of mages, hackers, and geeks. So what makes LLMs so special? They make it easy to access gigaquads of data. They're conversational. You don't have to know how to code, run an SQL or other kind of query in order to have an LLM analyze text, data, and returning fairly reasonable results. Now, depending on what your back-end resources are, an LLM will return things very quickly. And hopefully we'll be able to demonstrate that shortly. They're also being used to support voice-activated assistants and chatbots more and more, and they're like, when you're using these, think of Alexa, Google, or Siri, but they're going to be on steroids. And you're going to be seeing more and more because corporate America and pretty much everyone on the planet has serious FOMO. So whether it's safe or not, LLMs are being integrated into everything. Characteristics of an LLM. They're good at some things, they're not so good at others. They're natural language processors. That means you can talk to them. You can create conversational agents, very good at that. Information retrieval, being able to I used to be so proud of my Google foo, and now I don't go to Google as my primary go-to, I go to an LLM. And I go to different LLMs depending on what I want to do, and I'll talk about that shortly. Education and training. Imagine putting a private tutor into any person's hand. That's what an LLM can do. That's how empowering it can be. Research and analysis, again, hugely empowering, and you can personalize it a whole bunch of ways. What LLMs are not so good at? Understanding. They don't understand. They don't have consciousness. They're not actually intelligent. They have no intuition, no sense, no emotions. And this is a really, really, really important. Did I mention it was really important? Okay. So they may seem like they're human-ish. They may seem very interactive, but they're not people. They're also not good at accuracy or reliability. They're getting better. But the problem is, LLMs do not grok facts. To them, the data in their data set is all data. And this is one of the key reasons why data set poisoning is such a huge concern. Recently, there was an article, several articles, talking about how OpenAI is struggling with the fact that the Chinese characters in their data set are massively infected with porn, spam, and other content that wasn't appropriately filtered before going into the model. It's a problem. They also aren't good at creativity or originality. You are never, ever, ever, never going to see an LLM write Left Hand of Darkness or The Sun Also Rises. All an LLM can do is rehash known textual content. So you can say, I want to write an article and I want it to sound like Heinlein. It will scan through, and if it has examples of Heinlein's writing, it will emulate his writing style. But it's not going to generate anything truly creative. And that's something that a lot of people don't quite grasp. Now, the components of an LLM. The main thing you've got is your core model. You hear people talk about models a lot, and the core model is the heart because that's the data that you're using. And for OpenAI, the model is part of their secret sauce. That's why they keep it so close. Now, there are other models available that are open source that you can download and contribute, and some of them will only use content that's in the public domain versus what you're getting from anything from Meta that was scraping any tool that they've got access to. So you're looking at Facebook content, you're looking at probably WhatsApp content that has been scraped and used to generate those models. So it's the text, the transforms, parameters that address biases and behavior. Then you have the inference engine. Now, to use an analogy like what, I did a lot of web development, so I understand that very well. And you always have your data, your template, and then you have the middleware that actually passes things back and forth and sends the content out to the end client. Well, the inference engine is like PHP or Cold Fusion or whatever is going on in the middle. That's what actually does the reaching in and pulling stuff out. So that's where you got your infrastructure, your optimizations, your software to generate the responses. Then you have the UI interaction layer. Sometimes you're using a CLI or an API, or you may have something piped into a web interface. And then, of course, if you go really deep into the woods, you have to deal with model management. Which model is being chosen, what version is being used, that sort of thing. And, of course, other components, which we're not going to get into because it's really, that point was just there for completion. All right, popular LLMs in 2024. These are just, I think, the top 10. Right now, LLM models are propagating more rapidly than pregnant tribbles at an all-you-can-eat buffet. There are so many. Everybody wants to get on the bandwagon. Now, I am not ever going to try and attempt to do this much content review, but I want you to get it. If you take a look at the slide deck, it's already been uploaded to LinkedIn. I want you to be able to see the relationship between the LLM itself, the model, who it's made by, and where it's being used. So that's why I put this particular chart together, even though I know you can't read it in depth right here during the presentation. Please go and look at the slide deck later on if you have an interest in getting more information, more of this particular information. So let's do some comparison. I decided to compare ChatGPT, Copilot, and Ollama because those are the LLMs I am most familiar with. I work with all of them on a regular basis. ChatGPT is by OpenAI. You can access it through the web or an API. It is limited to the OpenAI data model. Like I said, OpenAI, their model is part of their secret sauce. The user interaction may or may not be used for training, depending on whether you're paying for your account, whether you've got an enterprise account, or blah, blah, blah. It is, excuse me, more creative when it comes to text generation, responsiveness, and direction. So if I ask ChatGPT any of the models, 3, 5, 4, 4.0, whatever, if I ask the same question 3 times, I will get 3 different answers. They will be very similar if it's the exact same question, but they will be different. Now, when I was putting this together, I said it doesn't cite or link sources unless you ask. As I've found, they're making changes every single day. And I was doing something this morning using 4.0, and there were links built into it. But I have a Plus account, and if you're using a freebie account, your mileage may vary. One word of warning, the links will often 404, but the information will probably have the correct domain. So it's going to get you into the ballpark. And I've had this happen more times than I can count, where it gives me a bunch of reference links for articles that it's citing, and I go there and it gets a 404, but I go to the domain, I do a search, and I'm able to find the actual article that was being referenced. It was just that the URL got broken somewhere in the middle. All right, Copilot, same kind of deal. Web access, API. You can also create plugins for it. Copilot uses the Azure OpenAI model. So they're using the OpenAI model, but they're also combining it with their own Microsoft model to create something that is unique and different. The data is kept separate from OpenAI. Theoretically, Microsoft is not sharing anything with OpenAI, and that includes your data interaction. So when you ask a question of Copilot, Microsoft will know what you asked, but OpenAI will not get that information. Now, Copilot is less creative, significantly less. Copilot is less creative than ChatGPT. For example, while working on this presentation, I went down a particular rabbit hole over something that I was trying to look up, and it involved a science fiction book that I read several years ago, and there was a point I wanted to incorporate in, and so I was working in Copilot at the time, and I asked it, and I couldn't remember the author or the title or anything like that, so I fed it as many plot points as I could come up with right off the cuff, and it came back, oh, it's this book by Heinlein. And I go, no, I know Heinlein, this isn't one of his, and that's definitely not the book. And I said, no, the book I'm looking for is not by Heinlein, try again. Oh, it's this book by Heinlein. Word for word, I got the exact same response from Copilot, even though I told it flat out, no, you're wrong, try again. So this has to do with the guardrails that Microsoft has put in on Copilot and its behaviors. You ask the same question 3 times, you're going to get the same answer. Yes, I've acid tested this. Copilot will also automatically include reference links. Now, again, some of the links are going to 404, but this has to do with the integration with Bing. So if you don't like Bing, don't use Copilot. I know a lot of people in the room probably love to hate Mickeysoft. I get it. There are a lot of people that aren't going to really feel that they have any other choice because that's what they have to use through work. All right, now let's talk about Ollama. Ollama is a different animal. It runs locally. So if you're concerned about having data being sent up to any mothership, you want to look into Ollama, because I have Ollama installed on this system, on this laptop. Now the only caveat is you got to have GPUs or else it's going to be sluggish as molasses in a blizzard. You can also pick and choose what model you want to use. And this is very important because there are models out there that are crafted specifically for code. Most of them are all about general text and conversation, but there are code models, there are math models, there are Python-specific models. Generally speaking, the more transforms you have, the better and more meaningful your results are going to be. So with Ollama, you can use Llama 3, Phi 3, Mistral, Gemma, Code Gemma, code this, code that, and I already covered that. Ollama, however, won't cite or link sources unless you ask, and Ollama, especially if installed locally, probably doesn't have internet access at all, which again may be the desired outcome. I want to give you options here. And so the models used may not have link or source information. To further do the comparison, we're going to drop it back down just to ChatGPT and Copilot. ChatGPT only exports text, plain, markdown, CSV, code. You're not going to get anything but text from the ChatGPT LLM. If you get an image from the interface, from the UI, that's being generated by DALL-E. Access to the internet is limited. It is getting better at being able to reach out and touch the internet and pull relevant information back. It does take direction well. So you will ask it a question or run a prompt, and the first time it spews out stuff, you've got 5 screens worth of stuff. It's like, no, all I want is a paragraph with 3 sentences. And you go, no, revise using a paragraph and 3 sentences, and it will give you that. Much better than Copilot, as we'll talk about shortly. ChatGPT can also be trained. If you have a premium/paid account, you can create personal GPTs. We'll talk a little bit more about it, but you can customize it to create standalone GPTs, but you can also tell it about yourself. I love long walks on the beach and margaritas with a little bit of jalapeno in it, and I work for a cybersecurity company, and I love science fiction, and all of this stuff. And that information can stay within your ChatGPT account and will color and influence all of your direct interactions with ChatGPT unless you modify it. Copilot does not have this option. So with Copilot, you get the links. If you copy paste, it'll automatically include link info and footnotes with those source citations. You can export from Copilot to Word, Excel, PDF, or text, all natively. Now this will work really well if you have a 365 account. Bing integration makes it better in general for current events. One of the limitations of most models, especially the ones where you're interacting only with the model and can't reach out and touch the internet, is that you're limited to whatever the last update was. Because of the Bing integration, if you're looking for current event information, Copilot is the better way to go. So this could be meaningful if you're working on a research project and you're leveraging LLMs. It isn't trainable. Like I said, you can't customize it and tell it about yourself. And it isn't as good as at revising. Again, not as creative. Both of them, again, they cannot tell fact from fiction. You and I know that water freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 degrees centigrade. They don't know that. If the data that they are fed says that water boils at, or excuse me, water freezes at 50 degrees Fahrenheit or 28 degrees centigrade, it doesn't know that that's wrong. So again, something to be aware of. They can both be chatty Cathys. Oh my God. Just, you've heard of diarrhea of the mouth. This is diarrhea of the screen. It just goes on. They do have memory. So within the context of a single conversation, it will remember everything within that conversation. Now, ChatGPT will remember more. With Copilot, you're limited to, I think, 30 interactions. And depending on the intensity of the question that you run, the question you ask, it may drop. You may wind up getting significantly less and go, oh, we need to start a new conversation. Both require a paid account. Both let you share conversations to people who do not have a paid account or otherwise, which is a nice feature. Reasons to use an LLM, personal assistance, lots of things. I'm going to blow through this because I want to be able to get to the demo stuff because I know that's what you're really here for. So lots of different use cases. And I kid you not, I have started going to LLMs more and more the deeper I get into it because they are so useful for finding and processing information. So, on to the part that you're really interested in. What's a prompt? A prompt is how you provide instructions to an LLM. They can be simple, complex, or conversational. Many can also take file uploads as part of a prompt, and I'm going to demonstrate one of those things for you today, assuming that my hotspot works appropriately. The best prompts will include context, and I'll get into more about that shortly. Types of prompts. A lot of different people have different ways of classifying prompts. For the purpose of this discussion, I'm going to discuss a simple query, a detailed instruction, a contextual prompt, and a conversational prompt. Again, other people will classify the prompts differently. This is just what I'm using for this presentation. Simple query. What is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow? Simple question. That's a simple query. The pros are, it's like a search engine query, but usually you get more relevant results. If I drop that line of text into your search engine of choice, I'm going to get a list of a whole bunch of different things talking about where that came from. It's not going to actually tell me what the answer is or where it comes from, but an LLM will. The cons are that no context means that the LLM can and will go down rabbit holes. For example, if you type in a prompt and you use the acronym LLM using ChatGPT, it will 9 times out of 10 recognize that it means large language model. Copilot, about 50% of the times, goes and pulls some sort of legal reference, because apparently in the legal world there's an acronym LLM that has nothing to do with large language models, but apparently has a lot to do with legal stuff. I'm not a lawyer, but it just shows how yeah, you can wind up getting false positives here too. Simple queries may not return brief answers. Now, this is cool. Went to Copilot. Prepare a brief letter of justification so my company will pay for me to attend the LayerOne security conference. And it spit out a full letter that I could copy paste into any Word document, or I could even just download the Word document. I don't even have to copy paste. And no lie, sometimes you'll ask a question, you will get 3, 12, 50, maybe not 50 screens, but you get the idea, a lot. But it is very good for quick and dirty questions. Now, a detailed instruction is where you're upping the game. I want you to do this and this and this and this. So I need a Python script that will sort internet domains, first by the top level domain, then by the domain, then the subdomains. The script needs to be able to deal with multiple subdomains. And oh, by the way, here's an example. And then what did it do? It generated a bunch of Python code for me. That simple. Word to the wise, the Python, the VB script, all of that stuff, you've got a 50-50 chance that it will or won't run the first time. But this is where, if you're using Ollama and you're using an LLM that is designed for code generation, you're going to have more true positives. You're going to have a better result overall. And you wind up going through an iterative process. No, that didn't work. This is the error. And you go back and forth. And the truth of the matter is, I have created multiple Word macros, because I don't do VB script. That's not my language of choice. But I can generate macros using ChatGPT or other tools and be able to make something that I use daily when I'm editing pen test reports. All right, contextual prompts. This is the money shot. Much more complex, but much better results. The first thing, what this screenshot, which comes from Mickeysoft, sorry folks, but this is a good reference, the URL at the bottom of the page. I know it's too fine for you to read on the screen maybe, but it's in the slide deck. Again, the slide deck's on LinkedIn. First, you define the persona. Who do you want the LLM to act like? Provide information related to the task or subject. Then give it an example to emulate. And if you're doing an iterative process, it'll know the history. If not, give it some history. And then, after you've done all of that setup, you ask your actual question, or you give your actual direction. Now, this type of thing is wonderful for repetitive tasks. I do web manager work for a nonprofit in my neighborhood, and as part of the website, there's a page that has a lot of glossary terms that are specific to the focus. Well, the website's WordPress, and I had another page where I wanted to have a link that pointed to the specific term that was involved, and easy, named anchor, no biggie. Well, I tried doing it one way, and WordPress said, I don't know what to do with this. I'm going to fix this code for you. And that was suboptimal. So I played around with WordPress for a while, figured out a way that I could include the named anchors without having it bork my code. And then I'm sitting here going, great, now I have to do this 50 more times. I was able to use this type of a contextual prompt and then drop the source code of the table that I wanted to revise into ChatGPT, and it did all of it, copy paste it back into WordPress, hit save, rock and roll, it worked. So this is the way you want to go. Last but not least, and unfortunately, I didn't realize the slide wouldn't work quite so well, the Fabric framework. And great, everything's going to be black on blue. I should have tested this. the PowerPoint was built on Microsoft, and this is a Linux system, and they're not playing well. So if you want a masterclass for how to build contextual prompts, go to GitHub, find Daniel Miesler's Fabric framework. It was created by Daniel last year or early this year, and it's a master class on contextual prompting. It works with multiple models. It was initially OpenAI only via API, but now you can tie into just about any model, either locally or via API. Full function will require API keys from OpenAI, Google, YouTube, or others. And at this point, whoops, nope, escape. All right, this is Fabric. Let me maximize this, and we're gonna do this. So I have installed Fabric on this system, and I have several demos that I want to do. The way that Fabric works, and let me, you know what, I'm gonna do this instead. I'm gonna go to his GitHub. Please work. Yay! It's the littlest things. So the secret sauce for Fabric is in this folder called Patterns. And what the patterns are these contextual prompts. And the beauty of using the Fabric framework is that, yes, you can install Fabric on a Linux system, on a Windows system, on a variety of other systems. Miesler himself is very much Mac focused, and so that was his initial development frame. But again, it's now open source, and lots of people are contributing to it and doing wonderful, wonderful work. And when you go into the patterns, and this is really taking a long time, I may just have to go back to my local copy. You know what? I'm going to do that. Oops, too far. I don't know how to make this larger. So in the patterns, in the patterns folder, I don't know how well you can see, there are patterns for analyze story, analyze answers, analyze claims, check agreement if you're looking for tense agreement within writing, clean text, you've got hidden non-printing characters you want to nuke, compare and contrast, create AI job analysis, create aphorisms. You want to have some kind of witty little quote to add in on something you can go in and say, hey, give me an aphorism on blah, blah, and so on and so forth. Now, to demonstrate some of the coolness of Fabric, I have these little demos that I plan on doing, and let's do, let's do this. Here we go. All right, so Fabric, I've got the files downloaded. Now, one of the things that I have is I have a text file saved from the chat conversation of a Zoom meeting. And in case you didn't know, Zoom and other video conferencing tools will often save the chat as a text and store it locally on your system. So what I want to do first, I'm going to cheat. All right, so here's just the top 15 lines of this text file. Now you can imagine, after the meeting, you want to go through, you want to pull the important information out of what went down, and I'm sorry, going through this manually is going to be a PITA. I don't want to do that, but I can have Fabric do it for me. So, cat, the desktop, the path to the file, and then, I don't know if you can see over here, I've got a pipe, fabric, and then the switch pattern. That's telling Fabric what pattern to write. And in this case, I'm going to have it summarize everything in that text file. Now, this is calling out to the OpenAI mothership, and it's burning more of my tokens, but you guys are worth it, in my not so humble opinion. Hey, I come to conferences like this because you are my favorite kind of people. Pardon? You are absolutely token worthy. Come on. You can do it. You can do it. How many bars do I have? Well, no wonder it's taking so long. Obviously, I didn't sacrifice enough to the demo gods. Come on, you can do it. They can be. They often are. They usually are. All right, come on. Please. I knew I shouldn't have cleared the screen. All right, you know what? I'm going to... all right. While that's singing happy, happy thoughts to itself, I'm going to move over to another cool thing about the Fabric patterns. You can copy paste these patterns into any other LLM and they will work fine. So, to prove my point, I'm going to go here and let's find summarize and go into the system file. So this is showing the anatomy of how Miesler structures his prompts. First thing is the identity and purpose. Who is it? What is it about? What is its reason for existence? What kind of output structure is it going to have? Are there going to be headings? What are the names of those headings going to be? Other output instructions. You're going to use the formatting above. You're only going to use human readable markdown. You're not going to repeat yourself. You're not going to start 5 sentences in a row with the same words. This kind of thing is very specific. And literally, you can take this pattern, copy it, and then go over to, let's see, oops, wrong button, here we go. Something like ChatGPT, and I know what I need to do. Hold on a moment. Again, demo gods. Meeting saved chat, click, drag, and drop. And now we gotta wait for it to upload. Gummit. All right, let's do this the other way. Paste. And in this case, copy and paste. And now we have a race to see who gets there first. All right, let's go back. Whoops. See how we're doing here? Connect now, great. Well, the demo gods are not kind. The the output would have been, I should have saved the output as opposed to clearing everything. Silly me, I was trying to be tidy. The way that the output would be is with the summarize prompt, first it'll give you, or summarize pattern, first it'll give you a single sentence summary of everything that was in there. Then it'll go through and it'll give you maximum of 10 summarizing points about key concepts that were discussed, and then at the end it'll give you anywhere from 5 to 10 takeaway points. So if you're a person who hates to slog through large documents, all you want is a quick and dirty summary to get to the meat right away, the summarize pattern is going to make you so happy. I can't even tell you. All right, so let's try going back and see if ChatGPT, nope, it's still thinking very hard and probably won't do anything. All right, so the demo gods are not being kind. Let me go back to the main presentation then. Tell you what, if you want to see the demo, hit me up in the Hardware Hacker Lab. I can get much better signal there, and I will gladly show you the demos there because the reception here is just not good enough. Thank you. An unsolicited testimonial there. All right. Oops. Let's go. Okay, let's do not a little bit of review, but I can jump through it fairly quickly. All right, so we did the detailed instruction, contextual prompt. Come on, fabric. Demo. Come on. Boy, this system was working way too hard. My apologies. Okay, the other thing is the OpenAI GPTs. And again, I apologize for the color scheme. Blame the fact that Linux and Windows don't play well together. OpenAI allows you to create customized GPTs. Now, GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. Generative Pre-trained Transformer. I have no idea what they think that means in English, but for all practical purposes, a GPT is your own personalized agent. And one of the ones that I made, it's called the CVE Summary Generator. And because I read so many pen test reports, and a pen tester will often drop a CVE into the narrative with no links, no description of what the CVE is or what's going on, and it's like, okay, I can't tell if what you're saying is real or if you're making it up out of whole cloth. I want to know about this CVE, and I built this for me. And I've got it structured so that it first goes through and it tells me what is the CVE number, are there any common names that are recognized for that CVE. And I don't know how well you can see, but some of the conversation starters that I have, one of them is, what is heartbleed? So the nice thing about this CVE summarizer is that if it has access to information about a CVE, you can go either way, either from the popular name to the CVE and the details about it, or from the CVE to get the popular name and all the details about it, and it's organized into sections that are very comprehensible, and it is intended not only as a tool for me, but a shortcut that other cybersecurity professionals can use when they don't want to go digging through tons of different horribly obtuse and obscure references about what these CVEs are and what they do. The cool thing about a GPT, you predefine the content, the personality, the output, and they can be fine-tuned. You don't get to make one unless you pay OpenAI. Sorry. But this is a feature that Copilot doesn't have. And I would have demonstrated it, but again, the demo guides are not being kind. Another thing, and this was a demo that I wanted to do, not only the analysis of the text file of meeting chat, but I brought with me on this laptop 2 different NIST framework reference documents, PDFs. And what I have done more than one time, this is how I burn through a lot of my tokens getting ready for the talk, I can drop 2 or more files. I can drop 1 file, 2 files, multiple files into ChatGPT. It will upload them, and then I can ask ChatGPT, do a compare and contrast. And if I give it a contextual prompt, maybe a pattern that I've pulled from Fabric, it can give me even more detail and analysis in a summarized form. And anyone who's ever struggled with trying to get to the meat of academic papers, GRC documentation, this is a godsend. All right. And LLMs are really, really, really good at analyzing text. Conversational prompts, you're having a conversation. Now, the cool thing about a conversational prompt, and I actually use this a lot, if you've ever worked with databases, when you're first running a query, you might not get the results you want, so you could do an iterative. You run a query, no, that's not quite, you modify it, you run it again. You do the same thing with ChatGPT, but it's more like a conversation. So if you want to get down to the nuts and bolts of something, or you want to dig deeper and refine what information you're getting at it, you can do this conversationally with an LLM the way you may not be able to do with another kind of database, because the data that it has is scraped data from everywhere. So you've got science, you've got music, you've got culture, you've got all kinds of things. This makes access to knowledge and information so much more accessible for non-geeks. And that's how I really see LLMs transforming technology interactions, is because it's going to make access to information so much easier to acquire. It can also provide mental health support, because since a conversation with an LLM is like a conversation with a human, it can help alleviate feelings of loneliness. I wouldn't recommend going to it and treating it like a shrink. Your mileage may vary. All right. Caveats in working with LLMs: their responses are always going to be limited based on the accessible data. What model is using? When was the last update? Does it have access to the internet? What guardrails are in place? One cool thing about working with Ollama is that you can get uncensored data models. You can acquire data models that do not have guardrails for hate speech or unsafe content. If that's your jam, that's a possibility. But remember, an LLM is not intelligent. It's not Hal. It's not her. It's a tool. It's basically a different interface for data. There are ways to enhance LLMs. Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG, is one of the most exciting things I've seen for LLM enhancement, because you know that problem I talked about where an LLM doesn't know fact from non-fact? You can give an LLM a set of documents, files, data, whatever, and use it as a supplement to whatever base model you're using. But the additional augmentation, this data augmentation, is treated as fact. So this is a really cool way to get better accuracy more relevant results, especially if you're in a very highly specialized field. So it helps to address the extrapolation and hallucination issues. Fine-tuning is another process where you can train a data set for specific things, like cancer research. There are what's happening with LLMs in the medical field is astounding and terrifying, because I can see somebody, a malicious actor, using it to create badness very easily. Adversarial training. You can go through and pound on it to identify vulnerabilities. That can be used to harden LLMs for additional attacks. Very brilliant young lady talked about some of the security issues and prompt injections yesterday. And this is a kind of hardening that needs to be done for public-facing LLMs especially. And one of the common things that is used to help enhance LLMs is human-in-the-loop, HITL. This is a very common technique. Human oversight, intervention, correcting errors, improving accuracy, working with bias to reduce it. The problem is human interaction is expensive. So it's done, but it is a cost factor in enhancing the LLMs. What's next? I don't know. I have no idea what's coming next. LLMs and other generative AI are new technologies. That means that a lot of implementations are going to fail. They're going to have issues. Some may cause harm. That's the way it is with any new tech. Just the way it is. Get over it, move on. Do not assume everything that an LLM tells you is correct. Pro tip. You run a query, you do your prompt thing, and an LLM gives you information, and you look at it and you're thinking, this is a little sketchy. I'm not 100% sure about that. Take the exact output that the LLM gave you, say, I want you to fact check this content, and paste that exact same content back into the LLM. If there's an issue, that technique will often find it, and then it will revise its output, and you'll have something more reliable. Knowledge is power. The more you know, the better. Learn, pound on these things, experiment, ask questions, talk to each other. References and resources, and we're having technical difficulties again. The Microsoft link on how to structure prompts is wonderful. I really, really, really cannot encourage you to get Daniel Miesler's Fabric and play with that enough, even if all you do is copy-paste patterns into other LLMs. It's a masterclass on contextual prompt creation. Hugging Face is another wonderful resource. Olama.com. If security is we have, at BHIS, we are contractually obligated to preserve client confidentiality. So being able to create an LLM that is standalone, that is separated and totally isolated and not accessible to the internet is a wonderful selling point, because then we can still use the technology for analysis, for streamlining points of pain, but we don't have to worry about bleeding or breaching client data. YouTube. There's so many amazing channels out there. There really, really are. Again, data overload. LinkedIn Learning, you need a primary account, but there are lots of courses about AI, Gen AI, NLP, and NDL, and a partridge in a pear tree. So go forth, do wonderful things, learn lots, and share with others. We're over time. I would love to do Q&A. Like I said, I'm going to be over. I'm going to go to the hardware hacking village. Come see me. I will answer whatever questions I can and share with you and run demos, and we can just have a good time. And there's my contact information. Take a picture now. Although, yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm really easy to find. Corvus, the crew. Thank you.